Before we get started with today's podcast, we'd like to ask returning listeners to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast platform, iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you really enjoy it, share a link to this podcast with friends or family who would enjoy hearing our weekly discussions about basketball and basketball culture. Now, on to the show.
Yeah, isn't it amazing when Michigan can keep this game to a 19-foot, 9-inch game inside that three-point line? It's all theirs. Nice move by Steve Fisher here. Turn it into the 19-9 game.
Welcome to the 19-9 podcast. I am down here in the studio with my co-host, Josh Barnett. What's going on, Josh?
What's up, sir?
Not much, man. I am just loving the studio environment. I'm looking around. I just pointed at one of the pictures. I'm sitting on the other side of the room, so I'm not usually over here.
I was going to say that's been there forever.
I know, but I don't sit on this side, so now I'm like observing all the other
It's dark over here on my side.
There's so much. I know. You guys put me over on that side last week.
There's no lights above me.
We had the video going last week, so I had to be on the dark side last week.
That's right. Couldn't have you breaking the camera.
We had to get Josh in the light. All right, man. What are we talking about today?
You picked it. You
I
tell
did.
me.
Kentucky. So we're doing 19-9 Classic, and I had you were supposed to pick one out for me. You didn't.
I can't hardly believe that.
I picked one that seemed like it should have been a classic. It was Villanova with Kerry Kittles against North Carolina team.
I know. I was excited when you sent that link.
On paper matchup, it's still fun to watch, but the game wasn't a classic, especially when we haven't done ones like this one. We're going to talk about Kentucky versus Duke. 1992 East Regional Final, The Shot.
Terrible pick.
Amazing. At the Spectrum, you had to have loved that, right?
So I did hate the pick. I honestly hated the pick.
You did?
Yeah, when you sent it to me.
All right, why?
Because it's such an obvious play.
Such a classic, though.
But then I started watching it.
Okay, good.
I was telling you this off air. I was going to not watch it and come in here just to make you mad and then dog the game from start to finish the whole time. And then I was like, well, why? That's just an asshole thing to do. Why would I do that? And so then I started watching it when I got to work today.
Yeah.
And it kind of just grabs you. It is an incredible
basketball. Like I forget when
I just feel like it's cliche to do that. That was my problem with it.
It is, but here's the thing: like we do so much talking about basketball, us included, and I listen to so many people talking about basketball that I swear sometimes I don't watch enough basketball.
100%.
And when I put my phone away, I watched this game, and I'm like, wow, I love watching basketball.
I tell people that all the time. So. We started this company in 2012 based off of our love of college sports, and then, singled in on college basketball.
Yeah.
And you got so busy during the season that you didn't watch any of it. So, like, you would come to school and be telling me about the IU game from the night before, and I'm like, yeah, I was downstairs packing 96 Villanova orders, and, it's funny.
Christian Watford who?
We get to watch now, though.
Yeah.
So it's all good.
That's right. On the clock watching.
Shh! Don't tell. I have bosses now.
Don't tell who.
I have bosses now.
Okay,
not you anymore.
That's right. Oh my gosh, were you a fan of basketball at this time? Were you watching this game, or where were you at when it originally aired?
What kind of question is that?
Setting you up, man.
100%. I was 11 years old.
Yeah,
of course I was watching the game. IU played before it,
right? So
I was at my godparents' house, Dana and Stan Newenham. And we would always have IU parties, so they would rotate them. So my parents would have them. Claibornes would have them.
Yep.
The Newenhams would have them. The Jessups would have them. We had this whole rotation. And so it was the Newenhams for the IU UCLA game, which I don't remember anything about, probably because I was outside playing basketball with my cousins, during it.
For sure.
But I do remember that Duke game, the Duke UK game, and I remember Sean Wood's shot to put him up. I don't remember the shot, but I remember putting it up, and everybody in the room was like, holy shit, Duke's going to lose. And because
right?
IU was playing the winner.
Yep.
So the winner was advancing to play IU in the Final Four, which IU Kentucky in the Final Four would have been pure madness.
Yeah, madness.
And so obviously nobody really liked Duke that much.
No.
But in my family, everybody hated Kentucky. So, and it was all my family, there. So, we were pissed that Kentucky was about to win. And my dad was the only one saying, Duke is champions. They'll play like champions. They'll win the game.
Wow.
Even with 3 seconds left or whatever it was when Sean Woods hits the shot, he was
calling the shot.
Called it. And he was like, I'm telling you right now, Duke they're the champions. They'll play like champions. They'll pull this out.
Amazing.
It was crazy. And that's what I remember. That's the main thing I remember. Then I remember the following week, Duke IU, and IU absolutely getting fucked by the refs in that. So I want to go back and watch that game. But I made a vow. Remember on this thing, I made a vow I'll never watch that game.
I was gonna say, you said you wouldn't.
Because I remember it how I want to remember it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to correct myself.
I'll make us watch it, and you can just come in here not watching it.
The one thing about this game that I was happy that you picked is I said that we would go back and do all of the 92 regional finals.
Yes.
Because you get Penny. I've said this on the pod before,
crazy,
but you get Penny versus Van Exel in one. You get the Fab Five versus Jim Jackson and Ohio State, Michigan, Ohio State in the other. Those were the next day games.
UCLA.
And then you get UCLA, IU, Duke, Kentucky,
Ridiculous.
4 blue bloods.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's a crazy lineup, and it's 1-2, 1-2, and then it's like 4-6, and then whatever. Ohio State probably was a 1.
Probably.
A 1 or a 2, and then the Fab Five I think was like a 5.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was,
It was legit.
It was funny because when we were watching it, I had it on during lunch today, and EJ down here, or maybe it was Seth, our intern, was saying, like, man, were there no upsets in this tournament? Because it was 1-2, 1-2, because they kept flashing the graphics or whatever. So I was like, you know what? I don't remember, but that is kind of chalk,
Yeah. So what jumped out to you re-watching this? I got a few things.
Well, then why don't you go? I just talked a whole bunch.
I know. All right, so I think the right at the beginning. So I didn't love the announcers, first of all, but
Uncle Vern,
man, they just didn't bring like this game top to bottom from the start of it.
Needed Billy Packer.
It had so much energy. Like they seemed like their energy level.
I think Billy Packer was the IU UCLA game. If I remember,
probably.
Right.
But and maybe they thought that would have been a better game because Kentucky's kind of an underdog in this one.
Yeah, but they were a 2 seed, and that kind of jumped out at me.
I was surprised too because they talk about them the entire time, but they're probably the lowest 2 seed.
They'd come off of probation,
right?
And so those guys, the Martinez of the world and the Richie Farmers, those are the Impelfrey or the Unforgettables that stayed during the probation period.
The only guys,
and then
that
they
stayed.
Added
Mashburn.
Monster Mash
and Patino.
Patino added Monster Mash, right?
Yeah,
but
for sure.
But he got those guys to stay too, and so that was pretty. If there's a cool, or if there's a thing that IU fan can appreciate about that Kentucky team, that's it.
For sure. I mean, those guys were all like Kentucky guys, except Woods, who was Prop 48.
Yeah,
bringing that back, that back around.
He played lights out.
He did, and he came through in the clutch. But they describe Laettner as a modest, normal guy at one point. I'm like, what? Like,
fuck does that even mean?
I didn't even know that. Like they said that, and I'm like, that has to be the only time in the history of college basketball that anyone described Christian Laettner in that way. And he's none of those.
Well, I
things.
think it's so. In prep for this last night, I knew you'd be mad at me if I didn't watch, but I wanted to go.
Sensing a theme here.
I wanted to take a different approach. So last night before bed, I rewatched the 30 for 30. I hate Christian Laettner, or I still hate Laettner, or whatever it is.
Yep.
Not a great 30 for 30, but it's all right.
Easy to say. Like it's one of those things.
Sure.
That you say it out loud. You're like, ooh, what's that?
Sure. So I thought it was very interesting that Laettner grew up bottom middle class, lower middle class. Hurley, his dad, even though famous as a high school sports, was still just a high school basketball coach, right?
Right.
And then like Brian Davis was on there, was like, dude, I was from the hood, like legit the hood, And then there was all this talk about how prestigious and preppy these dudes were, and in reality, it was really just Grant Hill, and it's only because his dad was a professional athlete, And so it's just funny looking back and thinking like what I thought as an 11-year-old, what the narrative was as an 11-year-old, but really what the reality was. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Like that team, what was weird is that in my mind, being an IU guy from Indiana, just hated both of these teams like off the jump. Like late,
I actually like Duke.
Looking back at it now, like that was in the moment, and watching back at it, I like both the teams. Like I liked how they played. I liked there was not as much to hate about any of the teams. Like the whole time they played basketball the right way. They played hard. They played defense. They were taking good shots. They were well coached. I was like, this is awesome. Like
it was.
I don't know why I didn't like any of these guys. Like it's just so
because
specific.
all the teams back then were well coached and played hard, and it was just a different era. Like you had to hate somebody, but when you look back at it now compared to what the product you look at now, and the game's changed so much that you look back and you watch some of these games like. Brivogel and I were in there watching it, and we both said at literally the exact same time, like, God damn, look how hard everybody's playing. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, these dudes were running all over the court. It was wild.
Grant Hill at one point gets the ball poked from behind and goes after it like it is the last, like that's going to decide the game. He dives full out like Dennis Rodman, takes out a guy's legs. I'm like, Jesus.
So the thing that jumped out.
Jesus, Grant Hill, slow down, man. You're about to be one of the best players in the NBA.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because I was kind of going in and out of doing stuff down here too. But the thing that jumped out to me that I didn't realize that was as a sophomore, Grant Hill came off the bench.
I know.
What?
Yeah, I know. I averaged 14 points a game, but
and is in the game on all the clutch points. It like I was like watching the game and I'm like, okay, these teams are pretty evenly matched, and I'm like, wait a second, where's Grant Hill? And then he comes off the bench, and I was kind of watching. I was hoping they'd show like Patino's reaction, but I just wanted to know like the scouting report of like, hey guys, they're bringing their second, third best player off the bench.
Yeah,
when he comes in,
like,
this is the guy we got to key on, et cetera, you know.
I wonder if it's just an old school coach mentality where Grant Hill's a sophomore and he's got a bunch of seniors on that team, and he's just like, look, I'm gonna play you most of the game, but you're coming off the.
It's such a difference.
Coming off the bench.
It's such
like
a
that was a
difference
college thing, right?
Oh, for sure.
Like,
in the college stuff, that's when people stayed.
Starter.
That's when people stayed.
Yeah.
So you backlog talent, and experience is better than talent in some of those instances, but not when you're Grant Hill.
Right. Yeah. Well, he ended up playing like 37 minutes, so it's not.
He doesn't come off the court much once he gets on.
I thought that Duke team was deeper too, and I mean, really, that they only went six guys deep. Antonio Lang played 20 minutes too, but he was like hurt, and so he didn't really, really
good college player.
Yeah,
Cherokee Parks.
He didn't really play.
He didn't play much, but he turns out to be a really good college player.
Later, but same thing with
Eric Meek, Marty Clark, all those dudes on the bench. They didn't play much.
It's the same thing with Kentucky too. I thought of that team. I think maybe I'm confusing them with the '96 team. That I thought they were deeper, but really they're like 7 guys deep. Even Travis Ford, who they got on the bench, he played like 7 minutes.
Well, yeah, and so I didn't know that Ford was a Missouri transfer either.
I didn't know that either.
I did not remember that at all.
But he seemed like a guy that could have got more minutes in this game. It was just kind of odd that he wasn't out there more. But to Dale Brown,
he played pretty good.
I liked the comment that he's from LSU too, or from Louisiana. So
that's funny.
They asked at one point, did actual Dale Brown recruit
Dale Brown? Yeah. I missed that part. I was thinking it the whole time
from a junior college. So that's pretty funny there.
That is. So funny. I think that when you get in tight games like that, your nerves get the better of you, and you in the flow of the game, you're just going with who you have on the court. Too.
Riding those guys.
You shorten that rotation, and I don't even know if it's a conscious thing that you're doing.
Might not be.
But you just get in that heat of the moment, and you just lock in, and you try to win with the pieces that are directly in front of you.
Yeah. I mean, you could be right. I wonder, too, one of the things that jumped out, why is it that you think that big games or games that end up being so awesome sometimes so often start out just kind of slow? Because they look tight. People look tight at the beginning. What is it about that?
But the buzz in the spectrum at the beginning jumped out to me big time. Yeah,
for sure. The crowd was ready.
Buzz.
The crowd was
from
ready.
The tip.
Yeah.
And then it dies off about 3/4 of the way through the first half. It kind of just is a mum or a lull there with the crowd where they're just kind of watching the action.
Yeah.
But like when that ball was tipped off, I was like, golly. I mean, people were into it. So
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Teams filling each other out. Plus, you're playing your second game in the matter of 2 days.
They always compare it to boxing. Do you think there's something to that where it's like the beginning of a title fight? Some guys will feel, kind of do the rope-a-dope. They won't. They don't want to take that first big hit. I don't know.
Yeah, probably. I mean, seeing what your shots are doing that day, where your game's at, what your guys doing, measuring everything
Who's
up.
going to step up?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then once one shot goes or one thing happens, and it's like, okay, here we are.
We're ready.
We're in here.
All right, I got two other things that jumped out to me. This one, Leitner stepping on this guy. So he gets fouled, and then for some reason, Timberlake fouls him, falls on the ground, and then he just steps on his chest.
It was so stupid.
I honestly, it wasn't. So in his defense, it wasn't to injure him. It did. I don't think. Because it didn't look like he really
it didn't hurt him at all.
Yeah,
Timberlake was laughing about it.
So I don't know if that makes it weirder or what, but it just was super weird to watch the replay of him definitely bounce his foot off his chest, and then nothing happens. Nothing happens.
Stupid dick move to do. It's just it's a playground move.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's Christian Leitner.
I know.
I don't hate him for it. That's the thing. I don't hate him for it. I just don't understand it.
In the moment, I would have been, if I was a Kentucky fan, would have been furious that he was out there.
Today,
he might have got a 10-game suspension.
They would have reviewed it. They would have thrown his ass out, and they would have kicked him out of NCAA basketball forever. But there was no replay. Yeah. They couldn't. They just had to go off their eyes.
They gave a technical.
They gave a technical. Yeah. So somebody saw it.
What the part about the technical that I love is that classic Christian Leitner. He goes straight up to the line, nobody else there because he had gotten fouled. Drains too.
Leaves that second one hanging for a minute.
Leaves it hanging up there you guys.
And then Richie Farmer comes down and only makes one of two. They end up winning the exchange on that.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's
such
Leitner,
a
man.
Leitner moment.
He is the greatest college player that I ever seen, that I've ever saw, that I ever watched in our era.
Yeah,
I honestly think that
in a live setting.
The dude played in four straight Final Fours.
Well, he passes. He gets the record for most points in the NCAA tournament in this game. So passes Elvin Hayes, I think.
Yeah.
So he's definitely, and he surprised me because he looked better than even I remember. He just is he's got everything that you'd want in a college.
So four Final Fours and 3 straight national championship games.
Yep.
Two of which they win, the one that they get blown out by Vegas.
Yep.
Wild.
And wild.
That's insane.
And he looks smooth out there. And the other guy that
6'10", right?
Yeah, the other guy that jumped out to me was Grant Hill. He looked.
Grant Hill's always going to jump out.
I know, but Grant
Hill is on the cusp of this podcast of Steve Alford and Ray Allen.
I know. He's right there.
Lore.
He's right
Grant,
there.
I could work Grant Hill into every single podcast. I love that man.
The thing that jumped out to me though is that he's sophomore. He's bringing the ball up a lot against the Kentucky pressure because they got to Hurley a little bit, and then they went to this weird where they were face guarding Hurley. And so they wouldn't even let him get the ball.
Can I tell you how much I love that they went man press that you never see anymore and then fell back into a 2-3 and just packed it in?
Packed it in.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Why does nobody press anymore?
I don't know.
I don't get it.
I think it's that same mentality. It's just that if you're the guys that come in, they don't necessarily come in to showcase that because it does take away from your offensive game. If you're going to play defense like that, you can't. I wonder if it's because we shoot more threes now because then they're hunting low post scores, layups off the turnovers. If you're shooting threes and you're pressing like that, you gotta be in some unbelievable shape.
Yeah, but
you got no legs.
You can recruit to that. You can do that. You can condition to that.
Maybe
I'm
thinking about myself.
Yeah, well, not us. I don't ever speak of us. But the press was awesome because Duke breaks it a couple times. They break it one time and take 2 dribbles and they get an and one on the other end.
Definitely.
But that press wears on you. That's what people don't understand. The press just wears on you and wears on you and wears on you and wears on you, and then that's when you start to see the benefit of it.
I honestly at the end of the game was ready to talk to the TV like it was a live game. Why are you still pressing? It was tied at that point. It seemed crazy to
that's their identity.
Why aren't you dropping back into the zone and just eating clock? They were even up at one point. They were pressing and fouling still. I'm like, what are you doing?
Well, here's the thing. if it's not a 40, how effective is that press if it's a 35-second shot clock and not a 45-second shot clock?
Probably.
Because it's a 45-second shot clock.
I mean, I would think more, right?
100%.
You got almost no time now.
8 seconds. Now you're down to 27 seconds. Duke moves the ball around a lot. Now they'll be different too, because if they're used to a 35-second shot clock, that speeds the game up. More possessions, that stuff. But I caught a glimpse of the shot clock at one point, and it was 45 seconds, and I'd kind of forgotten when it was 45 seconds.
Well, because they take it down and they'll break the press sometimes. You'll think like, oh, they got to go, and then they'll bring it out. Totally set up
35 more passes before.
Dribble it for 5 seconds, set everything up, and like the press never happened.
All the cutting and spacing and stuff. That's just that's my thing, man.
The last thing too that stood out was just the way that the game ended. Then with the coaches didn't really. I'm so conditioned now at the end of the game that after every possession, make or miss, there's going to be some kind of timeout. They didn't really do that. They just kind of, especially in the overtime, I'm thinking that they just kind of played. And there was I think maybe one timeout, or at the very last sequence, obviously they had to. But before that, you're just so used to so many more breaks in the action or timeouts. And I do miss that, or breaks for replay. The
replays have destroyed end of games.
I'm really I want all fans to be on the bandwagon, to be hard out on replay. I know it stinks when they get a call wrong, but it is just way worse. Killing the momentum and the energy of this game is is so worth it to not have a replay.
I love it for college football. I love it for that, because the football stuff is just so.
But you stand around so much in football anyway.
Exactly, so it's a completely different thing. Yeah. It feels like it's just more seamless than that.
Because there's no flow.
In basketball, you can have 47 replays in the last minute 43 of a game, and it just kills the flow.
Kills it.
Just kills it. And I think it happens more in the NBA game than it does in the college game.
It does,
though.
And it doesn't. The thing is, too, I don't understand why it takes so long. Well, I'm watching the same replay at home most of the time. Like, what are they looking at that it's taking this long to figure it out? Like, just pick one. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Sitting at home and just call it.
Yeah. You could have me tweet it in.
Wrong.
Right.
Good. Yep. 1:43 on the clock.
I know.
Let's get it going, guys.
Let's make this happen, or just get rid of it. Because it just gives us something to talk about, right? When the refs are wrong, and sometimes they'll still be wrong, and it doesn't even. Or it's like those weird situations too, where it's like, oh, they can't review this part of this specific thing. Like if we're doing a replay, let's decide they can decide if it's out of bounds on the guy, but they can't decide if it's a foul. But what happens is that the guy got fouled, and what did go out of bounds on him, but they can't call the foul.
He poked him in the eye on purpose, but that's not what we can replay.
We can't review that. What's the point?
I thought the game was better. I thought the crowd was better because of no cell phones.
Oh, man, that's not bad.
So, I mean, you're watching. It was cool because when Laettner takes that shot, you don't see a gazillion flashes go off and everybody just trying to capture Grant Hill throwing the ball in with her thing or with their back to it getting a selfie before he makes the pass or shot. I hate that shit, man. I hate all that stuff.
Would that have been you?
Absolutely not. I'm a memory maker.
Good.
So I want to see it with my own eyes, and then I just want to tell you hey, I was next to Tiger Woods when he hit that par 5 at the Masters, second shot par 5, and you're like, oh cool, would you ever say to anybody oh cool, you have video of him doing that? No,
never.
Watch TV.
I know it's such an old man.
It's all on TV.
Barnett, such an old man on the porch thing, but I agree with you. There's a kid segue. There's a kid at we did outdoor recess, which you'll appreciate.
Oh, I loved that. Hey, that's the main thing I miss about being a teacher, man. I love the outdoor recess duty.
So I'm doing it today, and it's beautiful outside today, right? There's a kid that it is pretty, and the kid wants to take a picture. They're like, I wish I had my phone so I could take a picture right now. I'm like, what do you mean? We're outside. This is it. You don't need a picture. Just be here. It's okay.
I was watching the U.S. Open, and these people had a Patino. Here's a segue. Patino had that house on the course during the U.S. Open, but it wasn't his house. It was another house. And I assume these people waited and watched golfers for 6 hours before Tiger came through. And so he's up on the tee box about to hit his tee shot, and this lady has her back to him and has her phone out, so she's getting a picture of her smiling with Tiger in the back instead of watching Tiger Woods hit a driver at a U.S. Open at Oakmont in your backyard. Wouldn't you just want that memory more so than the picture?
I do, yeah.
I just don't get that shit.
You can lose perspective because it feels more meaningful sometimes to be able to share it with whoever. I guess sometimes it depends on who's there with
if you live on Oakmont and you told people like, "Hey, I got to watch Tiger," who's not going to believe you? Your house is on the course,
right? Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't get it, man. That's the other thing. We just got the Jordan free throw line poster down here for Bravo to go above his desk, and he's jumping from the free throw line, and not a single cell phone. Everybody's just watching it.
Yeah.
How much better is that?
Well, it's great because that picture was there, but thank God someone took that picture.
Well, yeah, they're paid for it, like professional.
I know
photographers.
Yeah. All right,
goodbye, EJ.
Big picture context. How much do you think that this game defined what we now think of as March Madness?
I think I don't know if it doesn't define it.
Like, do you think that this set the stage for how? Because now March Madness it is like, it feels like the thing that everyone watches for is it's like the Super Bowl. People watch for the commercials. Like did this help like people focus in on those buzzer beaters?
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. There's buzzer beaters before that were equally as important, more important. National championship buzzer beaters. Okay. 82 Jordan, 87 Key Smart, and probably more that I forgot. Plus Bird and Magic.
Did people start guarding the inbounds pass after this?
Probably so, because now you see like they got the tallest man off the bench to guard the inbounder. That's probably a direct result.
It didn't work either. Do you see Taco Fall? Kyle Lowry throw it over Taco Fall, the OG.
No.
Oh man, you should watch that replay. It's unbelievable. You got this 7 set. He's got his arms up. He just lobs it right over OG with 0.5 seconds left. Hits it.
Oh, on the inbounds. They had Taco. I didn't know they had Taco guarding the
Taco
inbound.
on it.
That's hilarious. They should have had Taco guarding OG.
I know, no kidding.
Shoot it over him.
No kidding.
That's funny. I don't know. That's a good question though. I don't know.
Do you think that this changes how coaches approach the end of the game? Do you think like the way that these guys managed it is still the norm, or do coaches watch games like this and are like, look, I need to call more timeouts and try to control it more? Because it seemed more frenetic, the overtime and end of this game than I think of games today.
Meyer, you walked in here and you saw that I cut the tape off when I was watching it as you came down here to do this, and you saw the time on the clock.
I've seen it before.
I have not seen anything from 5 minutes to the end of regulation on. So I don't know. Let me ask you: do you think that this has changed?
This is what I actually wanted.
You can ask yourself questions. Just lead into it. I talk about shit that I want to talk about all the time. It has nothing to do with the question. So you answer your own question.
Yes. That's it.
I disagree. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I do think that this type of game specifically raised the stakes of college basketball. It feels like this is a turning point. Even though you're right, I think there were games before this, but this is another like inflection point. Like Bird and Magic is an inflection point in college basketball history. Maybe the Jordan game, some of the Georgetown teams, but this is definitely like this Duke team feels like a turning point in college basketball, especially the tournament where each game seems like more of an event, and even like winning a regional final. Like I don't know if the teams before that seemed to be more remembered by the national champions rather than an East regional final.
It's widely regarded as the greatest game of all time,
right? And it's for just going to the Final Four, not even the Final Four. So I think that maybe that changes, and I think that the stakes of these games change the way coaches approaches them. They have to, right? There's just more we talked about this before. There's more money involved.
Yeah.
Like you want to look like you're putting, or at least I would want to look like I'm putting my stamp on the game.
Micromanage it.
Yeah, because if I don't, the coach, who's it fall on? It ends up falling on the coach. Like, why didn't you put the guy on the inbounder? Like, I don't know. Like, I just didn't think they were going to be able to throw it 90 feet.
I think it's Pelfrey just stops moving.
He does. I think he just thought it was over.
And Leitner to have the conscience to catch the ball, fake turn right, one dribble, turn left over his left shoulder.
Yep.
And some of the Kentucky guys are just kind of standing there. It's almost like they thought in 2 seconds you had to just catch and wildly fire it up there.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of shit in 2 seconds.
Yeah. Well, Mashburn had just fouled out too, so that's because he was guarding Leitner, so that's a moment. And
the whistle was a little suspect all game
little
too.
Suspect.
There's some ticky tack shit out there.
There's a lot of fouls on Kentucky.
And then again, you know where I stand on the Duke IU game that following week. Come on now.
There's a stat where they flash up and there's like Kentucky players in foul trouble. 4.
None. I loved it. Cracked up. I almost screenshot it.
They had to explain it.
I was cracking up.
Like, well,
they felt bad about it.
They do have some fouls.
Well, just put the guys with 3 up there then instead of saying none. That was funny. I actually laughed out loud when that popped up.
Yeah.
But that's where some of that narrative of Duke gets all the calls comes from.
Sure.
So, and I'm not a big believer in any of that stuff, but I can also watch a game and say, like, from game to game, they got fucked.
Hilarious.
They got fucked.
Hilarious. Yeah, it definitely happens. There were a couple other things about that last shot that were pretty interesting. So, Coach K in the huddle tells that he goes up to Grant Hill and asks him if he can make the pass. I think that's pretty cool. That he is again kind of like your dad saying, like he thinks they're gonna win still.
Well, supposedly when they came back, he looked everybody in the eyes and said, "We will win this game.
Yep.
We will win."
Well,
this
they come
game.
in with
we will
slumped
win
shoulders,
this game.
so you can tell.
Yeah.
You can tell he needed to do that.
Yep. And
they
he
walk
was
out
saying
ready.
like if whether I really believed it or not didn't matter. I needed to make them believe.
Yep.
You know, like Coach K. You can say anything you want about Coach K and be fans of whoever, but the dude's a military mind.
Yep.
And
he understands.
There's
sending the troops in.
Yeah, he's got some really interesting, good books on business and just life coaching, teaching. I used to read his book, Leading with the Heart, I think.
Yeah,
is what it's called. I used to read it before every year that we would go back and teach,
good.
and I would apply it to just teaching.
Mm-hmm.
It's just managing egos and all the stuff we dealt with in the classroom.
Leitner, did you hear what Leitner's response was?
If Grant can make the pass, I'll catch it.
Yes.
Then
I'll do something with it.
Yeah.
And he tells himself then exactly what you said.
Slow down.
I've got 2.1 seconds.
Slow down.
So the opposite of maybe what the Kentucky guys were thinking. They're like, oh, he's got to just jack up a shot. He's telling himself, I've got time to make a move, take a good shot.
Because whoever it is, maybe it's Pelfrey on the backside, but they dealt in Feldhouse on the other. What the guy on Leitner's left just quits. I mean, he quits playing completely.
I can't remember. It's over. It's either
Feldhouse or Pelfrey. I can't remember which. But if he just takes one step up, even if he quits playing and doesn't raise a hand, when Leitner turns, he is literally right in his face.
Yeah.
And how long does that kid live with that? And seeing that over and over and over on the video.
Yeah.
And he's not the only one on the team that quit. Like the Duke players weren't moving and shit either. I mean, you know what I mean? Like everybody was just like, okay, here it is.
I saw they did a recreation of it at what was it, like the Legends game at Duke. So Grant Hill, everybody's there. Grant Hill, Leitner's there, and they do like it's packed. So it's at Cameron Indoor, packed house.
They hit the scoreboard,
and then he hits it. And Grant Hill nails it. Leitner does the turnaround and swooshes it first try after Coach K had told like the whole story about how it was all set up and razzed all of them like oh, they didn't actually say that. He kind of calls out the like legendary stuff that they said in the moment. And
supposedly they played it like Florida State and they had a similar thing. They were running the same play and Grant Hill hits the rafters in the gym, like nice. Throws up or hits the like scoreboard or whatever, and so it's just a turnover.
Yeah.
And I think I've heard him talk about it where he was like, I was just looking at the height of it because I remember throwing it.
Yeah, he razzes Grant Hill about his shooting. He's like, you wonder why I had you throw the inbounds pass? It was actually because I didn't trust you to shoot it or something like that. And I'm like, oh, yeah. And Hill's in the NBA at this point, so it's just funny that he can.
And Grant
still
Hill's
got that
looking at
gravitas.
Coach K like I'm single-handedly the best player you've ever coached in your entire
Coach
life.
K, exactly, please, Coach K.
That's funny.
Man, it is. All right, I got to.
Hold on. Okay. Is Grant Hill the greatest that Coach K ever coached?
I don't think so. I don't think it's a good question.
It's not even a question, is it? That's crazy though, because I mean, Duke's had All-American after All-American, and
he should have been one of the best players in NBA history.
Feels so bad
if he hadn't got derailed by injuries. I don't think there's any question. Like he was unbelievable.
He was like a blend of Jordan and Pippen. He was somewhere in that mold. You know what I mean? He was awesome.
He was awesome. Just the right mentality too. And he was still awesome even after the injuries. Like he still came back in Phoenix and was a great role player.
That's right.
Even after all the nonsense in Orlando where his ankles were just ruined, So he figured it out. And
T-Mac was an afterthought in that trade.
Yeah,
it was just like a tack on.
Imagine that would have been a cool duo.
Is T-Mac if
Probably not, but he might have been
maybe somewhere else.
He might have
too.
been a nice Pippin though to Grant Hill's Jordan. So
God,
I would have been okay with that.
Incredible.
Yeah, he would have been. I'll tell you what, to have him as a second fiddle would have been a nice luxury.
No doubt. It's interesting.
All right, so I got a couple more fun one here. Would this game have been better with Bill Walton on the telecast?
No. Bill Walton 92 and 92, because if you listen to Bill Walton in like mid 90s NBA Finals, he's not that bad.
Yeah,
he toes the line. So
you don't think he goes over the top enough?
He's not. Like if you put 2020 Bill Walton back in 92, he may ruin the game. And I love Bill Walton. I'll watch any game that he plays.
I think that's the thing, right?
But
like he's got that like crossover zone where he might take away.
I need Bill Walton on late night Pac-12 games that I don't give a shit about. I like to watch them, and I love the teams. But they don't have real like meaning, and that historically they're not going to have a place in time.
You want like Gus Johnson and Billy Packer on this
Billy
game.
Packer.
Yeah.
I'm a big Billy Packer guy.
Okay. All right, we'll have to revise that question and give like a three-way question on it instead of just asking Bill Walton.
Who I also don't want on the telecast is Grant Hill. I do not think he's very good.
No, he's just he's dry. Some of these guys try to be too dry. He could have been maybe. I don't even know if he could be the play-by-play.
CBS might not be the right network for him.
Yeah.
Maybe get him on ESPN. He might loosen up a little bit.
He needs to. You
got to get him away from Jim Nance.
He needs to bring more energy to it. Like
That's it. But you can't with
straight.
Nance there because Nance is just like the Masters. He's like bringing the Masters to the March Madness.
The Masters.
Because they're so close together. Yeah. He steps to the line.
You got your Masters hat on right now too.
I know it.
What else, man? You got anything else?
No, sir.
All right. Well, I love this one. We're gonna get back to it. Let's do what's our next one gonna be? I'm gonna put you on the spot here. What's our next classic gonna be?
No clue. Be sure to tune in.
That means I get to pick it again.
You can pick it.
So
man.
I'm gonna pick an all timer again. Or maybe we're doing a Chris Jackson. I'm gonna pick a Chris Jackson.
Oh, we just did LSU.
50-point
I'm picking it.
Okay.
Memphis State, Cincy.
Okay. Let's finish these.
No. Okay, you want to finish them?
Let's finish these.
Memphis State, Cincy.
All right, Memphis State,
if we
Cincy.
can find it. I think the last time I tried to find it, I could not find it anyway.
We'll find it.
So if we don't find it, then we'll go Cincinnati Fab 5 Final Four game,
Okay.
92.
I could do that too.
Because I want to do a Cincy game. I need to see Nick Van Exel.
Nick the Quick.
Yeah. And there was a lot of shit talked in that Cincinnati Fab 5 game.
Should be.
And I want to see Penny, Memphis State, Penny too.
All right.
Even though I think they get blown out in that game, but we're still going to do it. Don't bitch out on the score again.
All right. We're out of here.
Thank you for listening to the 99 podcast with HVS, the High Volume Shooters. For more information, check out the blog at 99.com under HVS. And while you're there, do yourself a favor and pick up some retro college shorts.